Today's daf is Gittin Daf Pei Aleph. We're going to begin on Pei Aleph from an Aleph by the Mishnah. Cost of the Gars Ishtay, if somebody were to get to divorce his wife, and Nimlech, and then he changed his mind, and then I give her the get. Bishame says, Psola min ha kuhuna. That even though he just wrote the get, nevertheless, she's disqualified from marrying into the... She can't be married to a kohen. As we know, a grusha cannot be married to a kahuna. So if, let's say, your husband will pass away afterwards, nevertheless, it's considered as a divorce that she's p'tola v'nakuna. Misila says, even if he gave the get to her on a condition, and v'lenasa tanai, and the condition was not fulfilled, and therefore the get did not take effect, like p'tola v'nakuna, he did not disqualify her from marrying a kohen. And a woman is disqualified from marrying into a kohen only if the divorce actually took effect. Zog the Gemara, Shalach leid Rabbi Yosef Menashe from Devil, Rabbi Yosef, son of Menashe from Devil, sent a Shaila L'Shmuel, Yilam Din Rabbeinu. He said, our teacher, please teach us, Yotza Olav Kail, the case of a kohen about whom a rumor was circulating. And the rumor said, "Ish plenty kohen kasav get the yishta v'yishevas tachtav u'mishamashta." A rumor went around that so the kohen wrote a get to his wife, but she is still living under his roof and attending to him. So, Mao, what's the halacha? Do we listen to this rumor or not? So Shalach Lei Shmuel sent the following answer, and he said, "Teitzi, she should leave her husband v'ador sort of bedika." And the matter requires investigation before he is forced to divorce her. So Mara says, what is the investigation which is required? If we say that the investigation is whether we can mevatel the rumor that's circulated, or we cannot mevatel, that can't be the question. Banardoi asked the Shmuel Banardoi is the place where Shmuel is the Pesach. And the halacha follows him. And Ardo, they did not abolish a rumor. Rather, they required chakira to determine whether people in that place refer to giving a get as writing. In that case, the rumor would be that he gave her a get. So the says, even if they refer to giving as writing, so this doesn't prove anything. They don't refer to writing itself as writing. Therefore, the fact that they refer to giving as writing does not mean that he gave the woman the get. The same term could be employed even if he just wrote the get. So the answer is yes. The Megalia Mills the Karlan. If it's discovered that they refer to giving as writing, then the Dilman Austin Kamri, there's reason to suspect that perhaps they're saying the rumor that he gave her the get, and there's concern that she actually is divorced. So the Gemara asks, Teitze, she has to leave. Amr Rashi, Rashi says, called Kala the Bas Nisuin. Any concern, any rumor after the Suin, Lechashinali. According to Rashi, if a rumor is circulated that a woman was Mukadeshes to a man, so then we're Chayshishin for the rumor, and she's not allowed to marry someone else until she receives a get from the rumor, from the guy. But if such a rumor circulated after she married someone else, there's no concern about such a rumor, and she's not obligated to leave the husband. Here too, in the case of the woman who's suspected of being divorced, the fact is she's currently living with her husband. So the we should not be chayshish for this color, for this rumor. So the Gemara answers, it says, "My teitze nami." What's the meaning of she must leave? Teitze nami, teitze mishes. Also means that she has to leave the second husband. If her first husband dies and she marries another kohen, she has to leave him due to the kala, to the rumor that circulated that her first husband gave her the divorce. So the Gemara says, if so, you're making a laws, you're making a rumor, you're making a bad name on the first children. If the reason that she must leave the second husband is because she's assumed to be a divorcee, this means that she remained with her first husband while she was already divorced. And the children, you're making a laws that will disqualify them from being qualified for kohuna. So the Gemara answers, it says, "Keep the misheni who the mapkina le, Since we remove her only from the second husband, and we don't remove her from the first husband, also the name that people will come and say, Sama Lemisa Gersha. People will come and explain to the Maisa that the first husband divorced her close to his death, and the children from here on are not Beyichos. Since he divorced her, she may not marry another queen. Because the Chazaka here is that the divorce took place in close proximity to the first husband's death, and there's no concern of the slaz being cast in the children from the first husband. He says, come and see that the later generations are unlike the early generations, as the early generations were more conscientious about maintaining yichus. He says, early generation, this is Beis Shammai. Who's this? There's Achrenim, Reb Desi. Beis Shammai were so careful about the kedusha of the kohen that they said, as the Mishnah says, that the writing of the get alone makes the kohen extra fossil for kuna. Now it says the later generations. Who's that referring to? Deisa. Tanya Shvuya says a kohen who was taken to captive may partake of truma. There's no concern that perhaps she was raped while in captivity, and thereby, in other words, a kohen's wife that was taken into captivity could still partake of truma. There's no concern that perhaps she was raped while in captivity and thereby became forbidden to her husband and disqualified from partaking of truma. These are the words of Reb Desi. Oh, my Rebbe Desi. Reb Desi says, what did this Arab do to her when he took her to captive? Just because he played around with her dadel, he disqualified her from the kuna. As long as it's not determined that the captors actually raped her, she's not also for partaking truma. It's apparent from her that the later generations are more lenient than the earlier generations with regard to the sanctity of the kohana. The later generations are unlike the earlier generations. The earlier generations would bring their produce to the field by way of the main entrance in order to obligate themselves in produce. And there's kapipis, they pay them in a meiser. Right? The later generations would bring their produce by way of the roofs and the way of enclosures in order to exempt themselves from meiser. Why? Yana says that Tevel is not obligated in meiser until it sees the entrance of the house. As it says, I have put away the hallowed things in my house. As long as the meiser, the Tevel, it's not taken into the house through the primary entrance of the house, it is permitted to eat it casually without taking meiser. So they would take the meiser through this entrance in order to take this out from meiser. Rabbi Yechlan says, "Afilu chotzer kevas," even entering to the court establishes an obligation for meiser. Like it says, "V'ochru b'sharecha v'saveo," that they may eat within your gates and be satisfied. This is mashma that once the produce is brought to the courtyard, it's obligated to meiser. Next Mishnah, Magar says, a person who divorces his wife and afterwards she spent the night with him in an inn. Shammai says she does not require a second bill of divorce from him. She requires a second get. Since they may have had relations at the inn, and even if they're divorced, now while she's being boil, it's l'shem kiddushin, so if they get divorced again, they need a second get. When does this apply? Why she was divorced following the state of marriage. Basil agrees that when she was divorced following the state of kiddushin, she does not need a second get, but they should only be gospel due to the fact that he is not accustomed to her. Therefore, there's no concern that they engaged in relations, even though they spent the night together at the end. Specifically in a case where they saw that they had relations together. The Beis Shammai says, a person does engage in bilaznos, although they were seen engaging in znos, one cannot assume that he intended to kaddish her, since they were recently divorced. The chazak is that they were simply engaging in just znos, and he's not required to give her a second divorce because they never got married again. Basil says no. A person does not engage in znos. Therefore, he had the intention to make out of the share. And if so, he has to give her a second divorce. But if they did not see that they had relations, even though they spent the night together, they were not going to say, everybody agree that they do not need to have a second divorce. Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah. The Gemara is going to challenge this understanding of the Mishnah. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah that Beisila agrees that when she was divorced following Ersin, she didn't get Sheni. Why she didn't be gospel? So the Gemara says, and if the Mishnah is referring to a case which they saw that she engaged in, there's no Mali min ha'eris and Mali in the sin. What's the difference to me if it was following the state of Ersin or the sin? In their case, they saw that she had relations. So the Gemara says, it must be that the Mishnah is which they did not see that she engaged in relations. And Rabbi Yochanan stated his opinion according to the statement of the Tanakh and the Tanya of Amar of Shimon and Lazar and Nechlu B'Sham B'Sil Al Shalei Rav Shnivala. That the whole machlekes is Al Shalei Rav Shnivala. Shena Tzichem and Negashini. Amal Nechlu. So what are disagreeing? Al Shalei Shnivala. The case where they saw that she had relations. B'Sham says otherwise. Bilas Nos. A person does engage in Bilas Nos. Still says, Ein Adam Eisa Bilasi, Bilas Nos, a person does not engage in Bilas Nos, and Shimon Lazar disagrees with the Mishnah. So what says about Nisan, and as for the Mishnah, the Kimna B'Leinu Shnibla, which we established as discussing a case where they did not see that she engaged in a relationship, but my plea, what are they arguing? That there is witnesses to their yichud, to their seclusion, but there's no witnesses to the actual Znos. I should say Bia. Shammai holds we don't say that these are the witnesses of the seclusion, these are the witnesses of the actual intercourse. According to Shammai, although there are witnesses that they saw the yichud, this is not considered as testimony that they had relations. Basil says no. We say that these are the witnesses of the seclusion, these are the witnesses of the intercourse. Since it's a chazaka that they engaged in intercourse, she is required to obtain a get from him. But this guy from the Ersin, Hillel agrees that when she was divorced following Ersin, she is not required to give a Sheni to Kieran the Libe Gospel because they're not familiar with each other. We don't say we don't say this. Does a Rebbe really say that Hillel agrees that a second divorce only when the witnesses saw that they actually had relations? And we established the Mishkasei case which they did not see that they had relations. So how does Rabbi Yochanan rule contrary to the Mishnah? So the Gemara answers and says, these are Amarayim, and they disagree with regards to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Some of them hold that Rabbi Yochanan does not always rule in accordance with the Stam Mishnah. If a woman was married by her second husband on the basis of receiving a bir get, in other words, a folded and tied get that is missing signatures. So Allah states in she has to leave both the first husband and the second husband, and all those mentioned previously, all of those previously mentioned ways of giving a class to a woman who was married based on this get, detailed in the Mishnah earlier, apply to her in this case as well. Get kedeach, with regards to a bir get, so akol mashtim love, that even those who are disqualified from being an aid can complete it, sign it in addition to the primary witnesses, so they will not remain like bir. Even if bananas, these are the words of bananas. Rabbi Kiva says, the Rabbi Kiva says not all are disqualified from bearing witness can complete it. Rather, only relatives who are fit to testify, only relatives who are fit to testify in another case. Rabbi Kiva permits only the inclusion of witnesses who would ordinarily be valid witnesses, but who are invalid here because they're relatives of either the husband or the wife or the other witnesses. What's considered a get kedeach? It is any get where the number of its folds is more than the number of witnesses. And a folded and tied get the get is folded and the folds are then tied. Instead of having two witnesses sign at the bottom of the document, witnesses will sign on each tied fold. A get kereach has more folds than signatures. Some folds lack signatures. My time of the get kereach. What is the reason that a get kereach is not valid, considering that there are more than two witnesses signed on it? So it says it's a zeta that was issued due to the one who says all of you should sign. Since it can be assumed that the one who writes a folded and tied get wants to have each tied fold signed, there's a concern that he may have instructed that all of them sign. If they do not sign, the condition is not fulfilled and the get is not good. Now, it said in the Mishnah, get kereach, in regards to get kereach, a komash in law that anyone can complete it. Rekiva, however, permits disqualified witnesses to sign only if they are invalid because they are relatives of either the husband and the wife or other witnesses. Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva eved my time alay. So according to Rabbi Akiva, what's the reason that a slave cannot sign? Thus, the name are kosher edus. The Chacham were concerned that people will mistakenly come and say that since the slave served as witnesses in that case, the slave is fit to be a aid. They will use a slave as a witness in the situation that the math testimony accepted only from qualified witnesses. So it says, Karav Nami also relatives as well. Also, the name are kosher edus. People are going to say that they will come and say that a relative is fit to be a witness. The reason why Eved cannot is disqualified is concerned that perhaps they will come to elevate his status with regards to Yichsin. The slave signs a get, they might say that if he signed a get, he must be a regular Yid. So it says, Gazlan, this is the reason why a slave cannot sign, that a robber, the Var Yuchsin, who's a Var Yuchsin, the Tachsher, let him be fit to complete the signatures of a folded get. Why did we learn? Which is mashma only a Karev, not a Gazan. Rather, what's the reason why Eved is disqualified? Is they're going to come and say that this matter, that his master freed him and he signed because he's now a regular Yid. So when it says Gazlan Nami, that's the member Tshuva, but by Gazlan also people will say the Tshuva. So, Karav Ma'ikal Neymar. Now, with regard to Karav, what can be said to the Salam to sign the get? Karav Kulam, you think the Karav, with regard to a relative, everyone knows it's your relative, and there's no concern that he will allow him to testify in other cases involving his relatives. Get Kiriak Sharav Shibu Edav Shisha. He says that the machlekes between Bananas and Rakiv with regards to a get kereach has more tied folds. The witness is only in a case where its ties total 7 and its witnesses total 6. Shisha b'eidir chamisha, chamisha b'eidir arba, arba b'eidir fleisha. Ad kan machlekes Bananas or Rakiva. Abukshar fleisha b'eidir shnaim de'rakol mashlim love allocative. So he says the whole machlekes is that when the ties total 7 and its witnesses are 6, and the ties are 6 and the witnesses are 5, or 5 and the witnesses are 4, or if its ties total 4 and its witnesses total 3, but if its ties total 3 and its witnesses total 2, everyone, even Bananas, agrees that it's not possible. That not all disqualified witnesses can complete it. Rather, only a relative can complete it. So he says, after all these 3 witnesses in a folded and tied get are like 2 witnesses in an ordinary get. Since the Chacham said that a folded and tied of the West requires at least 3 witnesses. So he says, just like there in the case of a regular get, a Karav cannot serve as one of the 2 witnesses. Here too, also relatives should not be allowed to serve as a primary witnesses. So he told them, after the question, I also had this question. Asked from Nuni, he added the Rabba. He said, he said, leave the case of the 3 witnesses in a folded and tied get, as the requirement is not midei daisa. Well, the requirement to have a minimum of 2 witnesses is midei daisa. The requirement to have a minimum of 3 witnesses for a folded get, that's only midei rabbanan. So it's of no concern if the 3 witnesses is not fit to be your witnesses. Okay. Rising continues, all of Eved. If a slave completed with the signatures of the woman we married on the basis of this get, Nana says Avad kosher, or Kiva Avad mamzer. But Nana says it's no problem. Kiva says it's Avad mamzer. But if the tie is total 3 and its witnesses total 2, everyone agrees that not all disqualified witnesses can complete it. Rather, it can be completed only by a relative of either the husband and wife or the other witnesses. Vasef Masni, Tat, kosher. Only a valid witness can complete it. Akaya Karev, but the Cheder we learned the Karev, Amrapava Tani kosher means a kosher. You have to correct the version, the language. It says, in a folded and tied get, the Chachamim validated only the use of one witness who's a relative. I will say with 2 not. That perhaps they will come be kosher to machshir the 2 witnesses who are relatives and one witness who's valid. If the get will be challenged, it will be necessary to be mekayim the shtar. While this get of divorce has more than 3 witnesses signed it, based needs to authenticate the signatures of only 3 of the witnesses, provided that 2 of them are not relatives. If there are more than 2 relatives signed in the get, the Beis Din may unintentionally authenticate the signatures of 2 relatives and only 1 valid witness. Amar Rav Ashi, Masista Navidega, from the Mishnah also Smetayik, the Ko Medaleg V'Tanechad, and it teaches by skipping one by one. The examples given relate to 1 witness missing, 7 ties, 6 witnesses, and so on. They do not include a case in which 2 witnesses are missing, 7 ties, and 5 witnesses. It's mashma that the machlekes can be Akiva ben Nasi only with regards to the signatures of 1 witnesses. Shmamina. Amar Abai says Shmamina. Learn from it that the relative who is allowed to sign a folded and tied get can sign it if he wants to sign it. Ben Mitzil ben Mamtzim and save either at the beginning, the middle, or at the end. This is me, my middle Kavale Makim. The fact that it did not designate a place. Shravna Mikol Plus and Mekaimen. Whether from here that from any of the 3 witnesses who signed on a folded and tied get, we can be machshir the get. While we do not need to confirm the signatures specifically of 3 consecutive witnesses. If you're going to think that you need a sufin, so they should designate a place of this relative to sign in the beginning or in the middle or at the end, and they should then validate the use of many disqualified witnesses. So he says, he says, when they came before the Rami with a question pertaining to a get kiriyah that needed more witnesses, he said to the person, go and complete it even with the slave from the general public and according to the opinion of Ben Anas. Hadan Allah, Hazirik, we've now concluded Hazirik, and tomorrow we're going to begin the last paragraph of Hamagar Es Ishtay.